The name of my presentation is One Size Does Not Fit All, but then we also put in some other stuff like product application, QPL, and NRTL. And realizing that maybe not everyone that's going to hear this presentation right off the bat knows what QPL and NRTL stand for, because they might be acronyms that are not commonly used outside of our group. But I wanted to start out with a story. It's not, how do I advance? No, well, there it is. So, okay, so this kid is not flipping you off, I promise. He's counting. You can see this other finger is there. It's out. He's too innocent to be flipping someone off anyway, right? So, this is what I started out, before this job, I was doing audits and lighting inspections. And so one of the things that anyone that's done an audit realizes is very frustrating is when you go into a space, let's say an office building that has a lot of little offices, and every single time you go in there, you have to explain what you're doing. And so you go in, you're trying to count the lights, and maybe at the beginning you're a little more nice and explaining what it is. Oh, we're doing a lighting audit. And then you're at like the 200th room and you're like, I'm just counting your lights. And so, so I'm at an elementary school, and it's near the end of the elementary school, and this is like the fourth one I'd walked that day. And so I was on like, reserve mode and being like, I'm just counting your lights. And I go, 1, 2, and the lady interrupts, well, why? So I have to explain what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. And okay, so keep going on the count. Well, is that what you do every day? So I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, basically. And she's like, that doesn't get boring? That sounds miserable to me. I'm like, yeah, I guess it can get boring, but whatever. And so I keep counting again. She's like, well, do you need the kids to help you count? That was the most condescending comment I've ever gotten, that a group of 3-year-old, or not 3-year-old, third graders could do my job for me. So, I just kind of finished counting and left, went to the next one and shook it off, right? So what it points out is that she doesn't quite realize what is involved. If it were as easy as counting, trust me, anyone could do it. But we have a room of lighting specialists here, or trade allies that are specialized in it, because there's way more involved than just counting lights. I mean, who's counted a retail store before? Okay, counting lights is not as easy as counting lights in a retail store. It's like, wait, did I count that one? Did I not? And so, but it goes beyond that. Classification of lights, putting together proposals of what needs to be there. So on the surface, it's something that seems very, very simple, but we all have a job for a reason. So the same thing can happen with lighting in general. In Utah, we have this strange phenomenon that we have a lot of people entering into the lighting industry that have never been in the lighting industry before because they see big dollar signs with LEDs. And so when you get in there, here's a list of some lighting characteristics. I mean, this would be a good one to follow up with the LED characteristics, because a lot of them are the same. There's a lot of stuff to take in. And so when you come in, you're new to lighting, and you say, oh my gosh, I mean, what am I going to do with this? And so you just kind of start to simplify. Say, let's just cut a lot of that stuff out. And the list is longer than this, by the way. It's just that these are some of the main ones. And what you're really going to say is, well, I don't know, distribution, I don't know, that's a little complicated. You're going to settle on maybe color temperature, because if you're not at least thinking about the color temperature that you're installing, you got a problem. Lumen output, let's hope that you're considering that, but not always. Lumens per watt, and the big one is price. So if you're getting into the market and you want to put in LEDs and your main consideration is price, what are you going to install? TLEDs and corn cobs. Yeah, there it is. And that's what we found is, yeah, a lot of people want to install this, especially when they're new and then into lighting in general. And so because of the simplification, that's what happened. But I will play devil's advocate for a minute and say, what's wrong with lamp for lamp retrofits? Let's be honest, we've been doing lamp for lamp retrofits for a number of years, okay? We really started out, the T12 to T8 conversions. I mean, that's the basis for all these programs, right? So this is not something new. So, it just happens to be LED lamp for lamp retrofits. you can save on a lot of costs most of the time. And I put in there most of the time. We'll go over some examples where it might be more costly to try to just retrofit than just replace the fixture. The other thing to consider is when you do a retrofit, you don't really have to worry about the design too much, because you don't have to go through the calculations of what's my fixture efficiency or whatever. I mean, the lamps have a certain equivalence that they're made to be. And so, if you have a TLED, you can assume that it was meant to replace a 32-watt T8. And so therefore, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. The system works, you replace it, it should be fine. If the lighting was good at the beginning, it should be good at the end, because that's what they're designed to do. So there is a bit of security in having to not redesign, because we have some examples. Richard has an example of an ally that went in and they didn't do proper layouts, and there was tons of shadowing because they redid the layout of it, and they didn't consider the shadows that they would cast by decreasing the fixture counts. So that was a risk they took, and it was very costly for them. They had to replace it. When you're doing lamp for lamp, you don't really have to worry about that, because the light's going to be basically what they have at the beginning, just a little more efficient. And then also you're going to save quite a bit of time, because you're not going to have to do lighting layouts. So there is a little bit of a benefit, right? So actually, the Department of Energy came out with this chart, and there will be handouts when I do this. But you guys won't be able to see everything on here because the screen is a little blurry. Basically, what you see here is, this column is for lamps. This one's for retrofit kits, and then this far one on the right is for new fixtures. And green means that it's a good fit. The triangle, the yellow triangle, is a questionable fit, and then the red square is not a good fit. So you can see that for a luminaire, almost every single time, it's going to be a good fit. The only times that it might not be is, okay, working above the ceiling should be avoided. So limited access, concerns about working above the ceiling, that's like almost the same thing. But either way, there's only a few times that the right answer cannot be a new fixture. But with lamps, there are quite a few times that it really might not work out, and you should consider either a retrofit kit or a luminaire. So this is a really quick guide that you can look at. And so, many times it might work out. You might be green right here. It's good. So one thing to think about is, are the light levels currently appropriate? Again, they're built for certain equivalency, so you should get about the same light levels. Are the fixtures in good condition? If you start getting down the route of maintaining fixtures because they have broken lenses and things like that, it's going to get costly very, very quickly. Well, so sometimes that you might not want to consider a new fixture, down here again, is, let's say that you have a row of strip fixtures and they're using the fixtures themselves as a wireway. It can be really difficult to replace fixtures in that case, and you might be looking at either a retrofit kit or a lamp fixture. Asbestos, that's another reason not to try to remove things, or again, poor access. Here are some examples. These are just simple TLED retrofits, before and after. You can see it's about the same. If anything, it's a little brighter on this side. Worked out great. Same with the corn cob. Here it is, just, there happened to be the right scenario. And, again, if anything, it looks a little bit brighter on the right. And so there are some times where it's fine. Now, I'm going to say right now, even though there are some times that it does work out, there are some times that it really doesn't. Now, this picture right here is a really good example. This fixture, you can see it's been painted, it's cracked, it has a bird living in it. How expensive is it going to be to replace that lens, repaint it, then retrofit it, compared to the price of a new wall pack? Obviously, a new wall pack would be the answer in a case like this. Even in general, the price of LED wall packs is coming down so much, a lot of times it's just really cheap to replace them. Now, so some of these other ones we're actually going to hit on the next slide, so we'll kind of run through that. So fixture optics, how do they change when you put your retrofit in? So this fixture was designed for a vertical mount high pressure sodium. Okay, and the vertical mount high pressure sodium, I believe, was a 70 watt, so it's not even that long. Now what you've done is you've done some very creative engineering in the field and put this little splitter on there. You bypass the ballast, and you put in 2 corncob LEDs. Okay, let's say that the original fixture was at 80% efficiency. And you, again, you have these reflectors that are designed for exactly how that was mounted in there. These are engineers that are smart people. And okay, let's say maybe with yellowing and dirt depreciation, maybe it's down to 70. What's it gonna do to add these in there? Is it gonna increase it, decrease it? What do you guys think? Bat wing distribution, okay. So I'm gonna go back to say, I suspect it would decrease it, but I don't know. Unless I have my testing equipment here, I can't prove either way. But the point being is that you probably don't know either. And so without sending this back to the factory to test it in this new configuration that you've come up with, we have no idea how it's going to perform. Now, here's another consideration. These are resting now on the lens. The previous one was actually a few inches from the lens itself. This isn't a parking garage. What about disability glare? So this could be an unintended consequence of these creative solutions. You're taking a well-designed fixture and redesigning how the light is going to be distributed. So I'm going to say I wouldn't feel super comfortable with this, but maybe it's worth looking at and getting tested. But again, you must consider heat distribution. So this one it's a very famous and very good bulb, but very clearly they say, do not use an enclosed fixture. So if you put it in an enclosed fixture and the heat starts to build up, you can actually melt these things, literally. And this is what's happened. And this is, again, this is one of the better performing A19s out there, but it does not like the heat. So make sure that your fixture, if you're using an enclosed fixture, is rated for it. What if you have a sealed fixture, something that's, you know, that's rated for dust or something like that? So that means there's no air flowing through there, which means it could build up heat a lot more. So maybe a corncob might be dangerous. That produces a lot of heat in a place where heat can't escape. And to compensate for this, the UL has required that many of the manufacturers put a temperature sensor on the board. It's pretty smart. So what happens is if it gets too hot, it just starts to dim down. Okay, it's safe. But now what happens if you designed that fixture to be at that wattage? It's a really hot day in Arizona, which I hear you guys get a lot of them. A couple of them a day or a year, and then the fixture starts to dim down. How are your photometrics affected by this dim fixture now? So now are we talking about a liability issue because the light levels aren't adequate because they've dimmed down because it's too hot? So you have different light levels for the winter versus the summer. Okay. Or is there even a fan in there that could fail? Is it dependent on that fan? And does the fan last as long as the LEDs? So these are all things, again, to consider. Another one is the lamp that you need to use, is it physically going to fit in the fixture? I mean, a lot of times we see the small envelope 1,000-watt metal halides. I'll tell you right now, I haven't seen a 1,000-watt corncob equivalent. So number one, if you see 1,000-watt, you can't really replace it with a corncob and get equal lumens. But let's say that you have a 400-watt here. This is the one that you need to put in, but this is the one that fits. Which one are you going to do? What do you guys say? What are you going to do? The one that fits? You're wrong. No, I'm just kidding. I can joke with Lizzie because she can fire me. So, the truth is you won't do either, okay? The correct answer is, in this situation, you want to do what's responsible for your customer and not give them something that they're going to regret. And that means to doing a fixture. A lot of people might be tempted to say, wow, we're going to save even more energy now. Don't be tempted to do that. Let's go with the right solution. There also are like T5HOs and like I mentioned, 1,000-watt metal halides where there really isn't a great solution out there that has that same equivalence as what they have. You know, maybe a couple years from now they will, but as of now, if you see those, you're probably looking at new fixtures or a really good retrofit kit. One of the other problems with retrofitting is that you are constrained to what old technology has. So the HID wall pack, you have an omnidirectional light source, and what you're trying to do is control that light to go where you want it to go. In the end, you get some of it going off into space and some of it going where you want it to, and sure, it does okay. But with an LED, everything's very controllable. You get it where you want it. You don't get it where you don't. And this is a huge benefit that you wouldn't get if you were to just put a corn cob inside there, because this equates to higher fixture efficiency. You don't have to produce as many lumens if you can be more efficient on how you deliver them. In Utah, we actually have a specific rule on the DLC, because the DLC, it has a little disclaimer on when it rates fixtures, that for corn cob type bulbs, the HID replacements, that they must be used in their application to be considered approved. We enforce it in Utah because, going back to the previous slide, in this case, there are actually corn cob bulbs that are approved for an HID wall pack replacement. And the way that they're able to do this is that they will have only one side with LEDs, and they're able to control the light so that it only goes forward and none of it is back. So if you have a corn cob that's designed for a wall pack, it might actually work okay in a wall pack. What happens if you put that in high bay? Now you screw it in and it's only getting light to one side. It's not going to really work out that well. Usually it's the reverse scenario that we'll see, and therefore it doesn't meet the efficiency standards if you're getting light back here, bouncing around and not getting to your intended target. So for that reason, we do require that the DLC listed category and the application line up. Now, we're going to talk about the difference, because we talked about DLC. We talked about a thing called QPL. QPL stands for Qualified Products List. That is synonymous with DLC, Lighting Design Labs, and Energy Star. The QPLs, Qualified Products List, are based on performance. We want to know, how well does it do? Lumens per watt? How long is that thing going to last? And what are the other factors like power factor, THD, and other things that could be bad for your system? So this would be, I love cars. So this would be, your quarter mile time. Okay, that car's really fast, okay? We got a Ferrari right here, right? It's on the DLC, that thing's a Ferrari. Now what we're looking for is, where does UL play into all of this? UL, what they're really looking for, it's not just UL, it's ETL and CSA in the United States. That's we refer to as NRTL, which is nationally recognized testing laboratory. This is OSHA that controls this, and we're looking for safety because we know that OSHA is concerned with safety, right? And so again, back to the car analogy, now we're not worried about quarter mile times, we're worried about airbags and seat belts and roll cages or whatever it is. So a safe product does not guarantee that it's efficient. And look at a Volvo, right? Now, an efficient product does not guarantee that it's safe. That's your dragster right there. I mean, the thing's super performance is great, right? But you have to take out an extra insurance policy to be able to ride in one. So the truth is, DLC actually does screen for UL. They don't guarantee it, but they screen for it. And so in theory, if you have DLC, then you probably have your UL taken care of. But they're both equally important. And we'll go into why in a minute. But the reason that this has to do with corn cobs and TLEDs is that we've had a little bit of a problem. These are all out of order. Okay. We've had a little bit of problem in Utah with this exact thing. And most of the violators of the UL have been corn cobs and TLEDs. In fact, almost all of them have been. One of the things to consider is that NRTL, it's OSHA, it's US only. So we require this. It's not every country out there that cares so much about their safety. Therefore, there are a lot of products that are produced that are not really designed to be sold in the United States. And so if you are going to be ambitious to order products directly from overseas, you have to know, was it actually designed to be sold in the United States and to meet our NRTL requirements? Corn cobs and TLEDs, they really are susceptible because they're the low-cost solution. Being the low-cost solution, everyone wants to find the lowest possible one. Oh, you know, $5 a TLED? No, 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 I want the $3 one. So if you're in the $3 range for TLEDs, you're probably going to have to worry about this. It sounds really attractive when you come in, you can have this great profit margin, but you have to realize that all this testing, all the safety stuff, that's expensive. And so a lot of times that extra expense of getting a UL listed product or a DLC listed product does equate to something. And so this is an actual example that we found in the field. This is a product. ESL Vision is a Utah local manufacturer, and we've talked to them many times over the phone, but I hadn't had the privilege of meeting them in person or seeing their products in person. And we had someone that said, oh, yeah, I'm using this ESL Vision product. So, okay, where are you getting it from? So, oh, I'm just ordering it straight from the manufacturer overseas. And thought, okay, that doesn't sound right because they're a local company, right? So, so sure enough, we go out on inspection, and this is really small, but we go out there and it says that it's a 5,000 Kelvin. I'm like, okay, but right here on the part number indicates that it's a 4,000 Kelvin. I'm like, okay, that doesn't really add up. You look at the LDL listing, and sure enough, it's also for 4,000 Kelvin. And so that was kind of a red flag of, okay, we should look into this a little bit, because why would you have that error? Maybe it's a typo, but why would you have a typo on there? As we looked further, we'll notice one thing too. ESL Vision, one of their big claims to fame is that they use these little pigtails for power, that the lamp holders only serve to hold the lamp but not power the lamp. And they are a type C TLED because they have a remote driver. This one very clearly shows that it's a type B or line voltage TLED. So right here, we already got, you know, 2 check marks of things that are a little bit suspicious. Also, I would point out, you know, the ETL, it has that logo, but there's really no file number to back it up. And there's not even a manufacturer on this. It just has the part number. So it was enough for us to say, we can't really verify that this thing is legit. We suspect it's a counterfeit. Therefore, we're disqualifying from the program. But I wanted to bring this up because the same way that we were able to do a little bit of investigative work, if you're concerned about your quality of products, you can do the same thing. Start to make sure that things really add up. So, so here we go. I already talked a little bit about it. Energy Star and DLC, that's a really good place to start because they do screen for UL. They can't guarantee it, but they screen for it. So, so that's a good place to start. When you get your product, it should have a UL or ETL file number. And with that, you know, like in this example right here, here'd be a good label. You can actually look that up online. And it should line up to your make and model. And it should even tell you what type, if it's a TLED, if it's a type A, type B, type C, and that should all add up and be legit, right? Again, you know, you can see, so your power method should be identified on your UL listing, and it should match up to the product you bought. Now, we get this every once in a while. Well, it's CE listed. CE is for safety, but it's not valid in the United States. So for our purposes, CE does not fulfill that requirement. And then ROHS, that's about, you know, material safety, like toxicity. And so therefore, unless you're intending to eat your TLEDs, that's not going to work for us. The other thing is looking for mistakes on, you know, some of these as far as labels or something like that. I mean, look for typos. A lot of these tubes that we're finding that are counterfeits, I mean, they can't even have correct spelling. So instead of model, here's modal. And then they misspelled ballast as balsat, which sounds really bad. But that they can't make these up, right? So this is kind of things, again, that you're looking for. It should be a red flag that this may be a questionable product and it may not actually be UL listed. Oh yeah, the warning triangle. I don't know what it's for. So in this case, here we go. This is a one that doesn't have a label on it at all. Again, if we don't have any labels on the products, that should be a major concern. So let's say that you find it and you still don't quite feel super comfortable about that palette of lamps you just got. you can always contact UL and ETL. And they are more than happy to come out, take a look, you know, take your pictures and tell you if your product is legit or not. And so we're not going to go through that, but you guys definitely should if you are selling products and have questions. So it sounds like a lot of hoops to jump through, but let me assure you that it's for your benefit. And let's go through with the QPL and DLC. Okay, so the QPL being DLC, LDL, and Energy Star. Why do we care about that? Because we want a high quality of products. We want to promote efficient products, ensure minimum warranties, and ensure longevity. Again, we are looking for products that are going to perform well. Why do we want NRTL? Yeah, we don't want anyone to get electrocuted. We don't want to start any fires. And flat out, it's illegal. If you're importing products into the United States, it's your responsibility to verify that it is compliant with NRTL. And if it's not, that's a punishable offense. So yeah, there's probably a good reason why we want to screen for these things. So why does this matter to you as trade allies, assuming you're trade allies, right? Because we want to make sure that the playing field is level. It's hard to compete with someone when you have a valid product that's genuine, that's efficient, that's safe, and they're trying to sell a $3 TLED. So by trying to screen for some of these, what we're able to do is put you guys on the same playing field that, okay, maybe they'll sell an illegal $3 TLED, but they're not going to sell it with an incentive. And so hopefully your price with incentive is enough to be able to compete against some of the people out there that are using less than reputable products. So we talked a lot about TLEDs, and a lot of it was spent on kind of pointing out some of the downfalls of it. I pose the question of, are they worth using? Absolutely, but only under the right circumstances. So I put down as the first one, price-sensitive customers. This is a tactful way of saying cheap. Okay, so you have a cheap customer that just is worried about that upfront cost. Maybe you're looking at the retrofits of, you know, TLEDs and corn cobs. The existing fixtures are in good condition. I've had it where customers were so set on doing a retrofit because their fixtures were only 2 years old and they just couldn't get it out of their mind. No, I just bought these 2 years ago. I need to use them. I need to reuse them. We can't get rid of them. Okay, they're in great condition. Let's do a good retrofit. Where the fixture replacement could be challenging, we talked a lot about that. Only when adequate light levels can be achieved, because it's not worth doing a lighting project if we're going to ruin their customer's light, because they're just going to redo it a couple years later. And again, if the products are verified to be genuine. Any questions?